good to be there because every once in a while I'll speak with a parent who's often quite surprised, not just at what their child was exposed to, but what their child had said or done, be it good or bad. Maybe it was just giving too much information, or maybe it was behaving in an inappropriate way. Being present and knowing what your child is doing on a video game system interactively on the internet is very important.
So just so people have it in perspective, because I'm actually realizing I think a lot of people may not, and that is, picture your 10-year-old, 11-year-old sitting at home and say, hey, Mommy, I want to go play games for a while. Okay, you've done your homework. They go to their room, they're playing their Xbox, but they're actually playing their Xbox Live, or some other game that's quote-unquote live, meaning connected. They could be playing with the kid they go to school with who lives 2 miles away. They could be playing with somebody else who lives 1,000 miles away. And I think a lot of parents think of their children online or playing, thinking, oh, they're just in their room playing a game. Well, they're in their room playing a game, but they're playing it with the rest of the world in many ways.
And we provide, again, those controls that you can help scope the audience that they can communicate with when you set up the parental controls. The other thing I think that's important to note is not only do we provide the tools and education to the moms and dads out there, the parents, but also one of the functions of my team is to actively police the service, looking for bad behavior, looking for situations that might endanger kids. You know, I have people all across the world right now who are playing video games in the system, my enforcement squad, who are actually looking for bad behavior as well. So we attack it from 2 angles. But the first line of defense is you knowing exactly what your child is playing and whom with.
And I have to say, when I was in the Justice Department, this is between 1997 and 2000, we used to meet with a lot of companies. Microsoft being one of them, AOL, some that don't even exist today. And the discussion was, what are you going to do about this A, B, or C problem? Whether it was internet-related, internet child-related, predators or child pornography, or whether it was computer crime. And it almost always ended with one singular theme, which was what we called notice and take down. You tell me the problem, I will take it down. So in other words, I don't want to go and do anything myself, but you tell me the problem and I will take it down. Let's fast forward to today. This is a perfect example of what's changed. You have companies, and we're doing it at MySpace, I know a lot of the other companies are today, where they're proactively saying, let's go find the problem, solve it before something happens. And that's a new endeavor. That's what I call what I call a paradigm shift. Something I know I've been at least talking about now for whatever, 12 years. But it's happening. It's happening in the industry, and it's happening in ways that go beyond what actually people often expect. But all that said, I was at a conference where a mother came up to me and she said, you know, all my 11-year-olds are on MySpace and I don't know what to do about it. Remember, the site's 13 and up. And I looked at her and I said, you know, what if your 11-year-old wants to go to a sleepover? And you say, oh, who's the mother? And she or he tells you, I don't know, and you've never met the mother and you don't know really the child that they want to sleep over at. What do you do? And she says, well, I tell them no, not till I get to know them. Right? And I said, right, you're being a parent. What does your child do? They go to their room, they shut the door, they're like, Mommy, you're ruining my life. And then they get over it the next hour or two, right? And then I said to her, look, why can't you be the mother? Just because she's on the internet or the computer, that doesn't change. And she said, oh yeah, you're right. You mean I can tell them not to be on MySpace? I said, absolutely. And for that matter, if you tell us proactively, we'll go get rid of the account. If they're 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, I don't care. We'll get rid of the account. But that brings me to what Miriam was talking about earlier, which is there's a notion we hear, the experts who often go on the road and talk at these things, from many times parents saying, they should. How many times do you say it at home? You say it to the government all the time. Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? So Miriam, you want to talk about the they should part?
This is a huge problem. I mean, I'm a parent too, and there's this sense of when it comes to internet danger, something ought to be done. The government should stop this stuff from being out on the internet, and that starts to talk about filtering from a government level, which we in the United States don't want. But it's being tried overseas. Or the schools. The schools need to educate kids. And there are efforts, but you know, that's tricky. There's not as much time in the school day for things like arts and music, and now we want to add new curriculum. And so it's a challenge, but there are efforts from the government to put money into it. But look, while we're all waiting for somebody out there to solve this problem, your children are growing up very rapidly. So frankly, I can't emphasize it enough. It's your job. It's my job, it's your job. Yeah. And it's not a technology issue, and you'll hear this from everybody up on the panel, it's a parenting issue. Because you've got to enforce your family rules, you've got to be curious about the technology you bring into your home, and I promise you that everything from the netbook, the laptop, the smartphones, the gaming systems, everything comes with the ability to make it safer for your children. You just have to take the moment, because it's literally moments, to try and make it safer for your kids. And then be upfront with your children about what you're doing. I really do not believe in spying on your children, in installing secretive devices or software. I mean, unless you've got an at-risk child and then, it's a different scenario. You've really got to bring your children in on the discussion of how are we as a family going to be safer. So one just quick thought on that. A lot of parents gave their kids iPods and other music devices for the holidays and did not provide their children with a legitimate way of getting music, which means your children are now using, probably with your blessing, some form of peer-to-peer file sharing to acquire music. What I urge you to consider is that all of your security efforts are being undermined by the use of this peer-to-peer file sharing, that your private data may be actively shared by criminals right now, even as we speak. Your music, your entire network environment at home is being made less secure as you allow this to go on. So just something to be concerned about. Again, an opportunity for parents to be more engaged and take control of over your child's online experience.
In other words, don't stop the dialogue.
I was going to build on that just a little bit. I mean, when we think of online behavior for children, we at Microsoft often take, and of course everyone on the panel I'm sure would agree with this, it's not just safety, it's also a million other things. It's healthy gaming, healthy lifestyle, things of that nature. It's not just protecting them, it's also helping them integrate online behavior into that mix of outside playtime and schoolwork and all the other things that we don't want them to ignore. So from our perspective, it's very much in the form of a partnership on our side, where we feel like providing the technology that provides capability is one thing. Listening to the feedback on how we can make family settings a lot easier is part of that partnership. So to the extent that some of these things become difficult or are too difficult, or when you look at the actual settings or things that you want to configure for any given device, we also encourage people to get with the maker of that device, provide your feedback, come to events like this. I'm certain to listen to any feedback you have about Xbox Live or anything that makes it more difficult to configure, to make it easier for you to integrate those settings that we're talking about up here to help control that experience. We want to make it easy.
So Miriam, you said something. Actually, do you want to say?
I wanted to ask you a question, Stephen.
Sure.
And actually, maybe the other panelists can, because I have a very active parent group and a school group, and we talk a lot about how much time is appropriate. I mean, that's
Sure.
one of those questions. How much time is appropriate online? And to some degree, do you believe that online gaming, we all know all this can be very addictive. We all kind of get sucked into it ourselves with our devices, right? Do you think it's unhealthy in the sense of creating antisocial behavior?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Just real
I have
briefly,
an opinion.
I think all things in moderation. I think certainly it can create sort of a more, I don't want to use the word introverted, but it's possible, depending on, again, the engagement of the parent. If the child is sort of in their room all day long playing these games and the parent is not engaged and there's not some sort of interaction about regulating sort of the online activity, I don't think it's any different in video gaming from chatting or doing anything else that they're doing to the exclusion of anything else. One of the things that we have on our getgamesmart.com website is sort of guidelines about, as children progress, how you can integrate online gaming and online behavior into their social activities and be watchful for it. I think my short answer to that would be, no, I don't believe by itself it generates antisocial behavior. I think it's all going to be situational in the engagement of the parent.
So that, I'm going to tie that into what Miriam said, which is when we did the study at the Harvard Berkman Center, one of the pieces of the study that came out that I think opened up a lot of eyes was that it was the at-risk teens that were at risk in the physical world who are just as at risk in the online world. And those kids